Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about my latest roster that I have been tinkering with. And thus far, if nothing else, it has been very consistent. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. I want to start out today by saying I don't usually do roster reviews over the various lists that I play, because outside of the Avengers list I took to Adepticon, I'm usually just throwing something together right before I go to the game store on a Tuesday night with something I want to play or mess around with. Usually I enjoy taking a leadership that I can build synergies around, which is probably why my favorite three teams to play are Steve's Avengers, Magneto's Brotherhood, and Miles' Web Warriors. And now I have a new blind obsession, if you will, with Shadowland Daredevil. Before we dig in, I do want to give my usual shoutouts to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games based in the EU, and War Room Hobbies based here in Tennessee. Both are great local gaming stores that are having game nights and events at their stores and supporting their local communities. So, if you are shopping online anyways, please consider using them as an option to support an LGS instead of a big warehouse company. And to help beat those prices, I have some codes that will save you even more off of their already discounted prices. If you use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout, you'll save an extra 5% off from Tritex's MCP selection. And if you check out at War Room Hobbies, you can use the code MCP2022 for an extra 10% off of your order, whether it is for MCP, Legion, or whatever else you are into. And even though we are in a bit of a weird window with nothing really announced outside of the just recently revealed Black Swan and Supergiant, it's maybe a good time to either finish painting some of those plastic models that you have just sitting that nice gray tone in the closet, or maybe a good time to pick up the Rivals box or something like that. I will say though, if you're already shopping from your LGS, do that. Keep doing that. It's awesome. We support them, and that's what me giving these other stores a shout out are kind of for. But if you are doing that and are still wanting a way to support the guild's videos or podcast, check out our Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month or $12 a year, you help us continue to put out content for Marvel Crisis Protocol as a podcast and here on YouTube. We also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. And with all that said and done and talked about, let's talk about my Oops All Rapid Fire and Rerolls roster. And we start with the one and only leader that I intend on running at least. I technically could use another leader that's in the squad, but the one I'm really keen on is the Shadowland's Daredevil. As a character on his own, he isn't bringing a ton to the team outside of his leadership, which is Shadow War. It lets my characters reroll one die on an attack roll as long as the target character is holding or contesting an objective. And this is the crux of the list, basically that it doesn't say once per turn. You can just keep getting rerolls, so rapid fire, beams, flurry attacks will just get more and more value out of this leadership. Additionally, this reroll can be used to reroll a skull, which is more handy than you might first think, especially when you're only rolling 4 dice, because you won't always have another random block or blank to reroll. Daredevil himself, though, is nice as a leader because he can make pretty good use of his leadership himself, not to mention his own ninjas. And then the other upside is that he's pretty durable as a leader, as he counts blanks for his physical and energy defense rolls on both his healthy and injured sides. So from here though, we really start to build the synergy that this list is made for. The core characters that always seem to hit the table alongside Daredevil are Hood and Winter Soldier. This gives me 3 affiliated characters, or at least the counts as affiliated in regards to Winter Soldier's rogue agent. Then Sin is a bit more fragile than I would like as a core member, but it is still able to come in as if she needs to be affiliated at a point total like 19. Hood is part of that core because he brings mystic attacks that seem to always be relevant against someone on the enemy team these days, whether it is a lower defense or just ignoring defensive tech like martial artist. And really, the rest of his kit is far from lacking. If he transformed, his Empower Dark Lightning will shred enemies and bounce around some extra damage, and he's also able to heal characters for 3 with his Dark Arts. Winter Soldier, I don't really know what to say about Winter Soldier these days. He will have the occasional dud roll, but for the most part, especially once he gets a reroll, let alone 2 from getting within range 1, Winter Soldier can have some insane damage output both on your turn and your opponent's when they daze a friendly character. And if that friend was carrying an objective token that they then want their character to pick up, well, now Winter Soldier gets a reroll because that character would be contesting that objective. Also, Winter Soldier is able to do some stupid movement stuff with his Hydra tactics since there isn't a limit on it outside of how much power he has. In my most recent game, he used it 4 times to leap across the table to pick up the Wakandan herb and then get it back to the vessel and score 4 victory points. So that's the core, though, the Winter Soldier, Daredevil, and Hood, that I then tried to build off of. If I need another affiliated character, I look to Bullseye and Sin. Both are fun and help me go wider when I need to. Sin, again, isn't my first choice, which I've already talked about a little bit, and Bullseye is a fine addition for pushing damage through, so depending on what the rest of my team is looking like, he's my usual choice to expand the team to stay affiliated, and that leaves us with 5 other unaffiliated characters. And 4 of them have the same threat value. Domino and Mystique, though, are the only 2 that both bring more rapid-fire goodness with them, and each with their own powerful twist. Domino not letting my opponent roll in crits, hitting more crits herself, and having access to Incinerate is probably the deadliest member of the team when she is on the table, and is a likely addition when everyone is kind of clumped together on an objective like Gamma Shelters. Mystique is also quite deadly as she is able to turn off any defensive abilities like Bodyguard, damage reduction, or dice buffs. Not to mention she has the nice combo of stealth and martial artist to keep herself alive. And of course her trump card Deception is probably the best character card in the game and can be great for disrupting your opponent. And then she's usually brought in where there is a more spread out objective because she's able to book it from point to point a little bit easier than Domino because of her long move, and Deception's long range lets her have a much bigger board presence. Then we have the reroll package that is Baron Zemo, Medusa, and Crystal. I'm going to start with Medusa because Zemo and Crystal are kind of similar in their uses and won't often see the board together. But Medusa was once an S+ tier character, and then they added a crit onto her Braid Bash's Flurry trigger, which made it harder to get more consistently. Well, with 2 rerolls and the ability to modify a failure, it gets a bit closer to 50%, even better if you're willing to reroll a hit to search for that last result you need, but I don't often recommend doing that. As well, Medusa should be able to build up a nice bit of power to help move herself and teammates around the board with her Royal Decree. She will always be coming in at 14 and 17 threat, and then the other point totals depending on what the objective looks like. Which leaves us then with Crystal and Zemo. They both do an excellent job of area support / control on an E objective setup like Gamma, Demons, and Researcher. Zemo is pretty self-explanatory. Keep characters with rapid fire within range 2 of Zemo, and they get more rerolls. And while this is great, at this point I'm not sure if it's maybe just overkill. So he's going to need some more testing, but even if the rerolls are overkill or win more, Zemo also just happens to be a great damage dealer himself. But again, I'm planning on doing some more testing and might also try Shuri out in this spot to give the list some more control options while also providing rerolls for those really bad rolls. Crystal, though, is a more recent addition herself and really shines on Demons Downtown because she just won't let the enemy characters shake the Incinerate. Not to mention, she has a beam and area attacks that can do a lethal amount of work, especially with the additional rerolls. She also has her tactic card, Elemental Infusion, to help layer on status conditions, or more importantly, for when the enemy isn't incinerated, to incinerate them. Elemental Infusion is especially cool because if you deal damage on the first attack from rapid fire, the follow-up attack, the defender will already be rolling one less dice. And in case it needs to be said, Incinerate does a lot of work in this list because we are making probably close to double the amount of attacks than a typical list. And so that's double the number of defense dice lost to the condition. So the core idea of this list is to roll small pools of consistent dice against weakened defenders for maximum value. So the characters themselves are already point toward that objective, and next up we'll talk about key tactic cards. The restricted cards I'm bringing are Field Dressing and Bitter Rivals. Now, sure, Medpack and Brace for Impact, etc. are all great candidates for the restricted spots, but I think Field Dressing and Bitter Rivals take top spots in this list. Field Dressing is key in a list that is mostly a bunch of 3-threat characters, because in all likelihood someone's going to get dazed before they activate. A well-timed Field Dressing gives them that opportunity to get up and do some work. In my last 2 games, I've used Field Dressing onto Winter Soldier for him to either daze a Hulk and score a Wakandan herb, or for him to wake up and daze a slightly beat up Cyclops, pick up 2 hammers, and proceed to daze a full health Vision. Field Dressing is going to be a linchpin and just stay. Then there is Bitter Rivals, and man does this list love Bitter Rivals. It is everything the team likes about the Incinerate condition, and also weakens their offensive output. Also, it stacks with Incinerate, so seeing your opponent get only 1 defense die is not too uncommon when Crystal is on the table. So what about the other 8 tactic cards? There are 3 other generics: Blind Obsession, Sacrifice, and Follow Me. Blind Obsession gives a character more dice against another target for every attack. Hello, Rapid Fire. Sacrifice is kind of cute with Winter Soldier passing off a big attack, only then to shoot the enemy character that dazes the ally that we just sacrificed. Really though, it's just a good card to have in general to help protect an important piece. Follow Me is one of the most powerful tactic cards really in the game, but it has a high power cost to balance that out. Thankfully, the Rapid Fire crew builds power pretty easily, and outside of his spender, Daredevil isn't really spending power on anything else anyways, so we can splurge for the double activation pretty easily. For our character-specific cards, we have the previously mentioned Elemental Infusion for Crystal, Mystique's Deception, and also Hood's Gang. This is the only one I hadn't talked about earlier, and it's a really good card. It's basically just an extra addition or another layer of Daredevil's leadership. But its timing can be awkward because it has to be played during Hood's activation, and Hood has to be in his normal form. So to get full advantage, you need Hood to go first, which isn't always a problem, but it won't always be the ideal choice when you have a character on the verge of dazing or getting KO'd. You want to use some of them first. So this one may get swapped, but it can also be a standout card if the situation lines up for it. And this leaves me then with just 2 affiliated cards to talk about. All According to Plan gives me priority for 10 power, but it has to be paid for only by Criminal Syndicate characters. And considering that Winter Soldier is part of my affiliated core, that can be difficult. But this card is amazing in matchups against other aggressive teams like Black Order, so it holds its spot in my 10. The other card that has done work is Cruelty. Whenever you get really close to dazing someone, like just 1 more point of damage would get the job done, well, Cruelty is there for you, and you don't have to be an affiliated team member to play it. So it's just another great card to help push through a bit more damage, and this is usually the 3rd card I bring in every single game after my restricted ones, because it can always be used and has been quite effective for me so far. And now we finally have the crisis cards that I am bringing. The secures are pretty simple. Gamma Shelters and Demons Downtown both pull in people for a fight, and we are really good at that fight. Intrusions lets characters bamf around the board and still get off double attacks, which is more often than not really 4 attacks. Then for the extracts, we use hammers because I feel like it's an obvious choice. I don't really know if there's another list out there that can use hammers as effectively as this roster can. Then Research Station again pulls everyone toward the middle for a big brawl where the team can succeed and synergize, especially if you get like Baron Zemo in there and stuff. And then finally we have Spider Infected. This might end up becoming Cosmic Cubes instead, but the idea is to have a 5-wide objective so that your opponent is more likely to have an objective on them so that you can get those sweet, sweet rerolls from Daredevil's leadership. And that is my latest roster that I have been tinkering with, guys. I do feel like a disclaimer should be somewhere in this video that I do not think that this list is going to go out and win a tournament or anything like that. But it's been a lot of fun to roll dice, and then keep on rolling dice, and then throw some rerolls in. I will say if you get the right setup though, this list can and will shred through the enemy team if they try to dig in for a fight. But that is all I have for you guys today, and if you don't already have a comment for your giveaway entry, I'm curious about 2 things. First, do you guys enjoy watching roster reviews like this? I know I've done a couple now with the Avengers list recently, and secondly this one, and I'm just kind of curious if you guys enjoy these. The second question is this a list that you would enjoy playing? I know that this playstyle may not fit everybody, but I'm curious if other people would be willing to go play this list, test it out, and kind of give their thoughts and feedback. As always, if you've enjoyed my thoughts though and are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and other MCP content, I guess. You can also, though, find the Gamers Guild podcast on several different podcast apps and more. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.